Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Wrestling is Awesome podcast with Alec and Bradley. And we're going to hop right into it. Let's recap Monday Night Raw first. You know what? I'm going to say this, I don't know what your reaction is going to be. I taped Monday Night Raw last night because I had work, obviously. And then I watched it when I got home from the beginning. I'm sorry. I used to be a big Seth Rollins fan. Not anymore. He is turning into the dirtbag of the world.
Yeah, I saw the whole conversation with him and Sami Zayn. Well, it started with CM Punk being backstage, being interviewed, and he had talked about how him and Seth, if you guys don't know, CM Punk helped Seth Rollins get into WWE. A lot of people don't know that, but that was what was said. And when everything went down, he got him in there, but Seth hasn't been happy with CM Punk since he came back at the Rumble. I think that was a pay-per-view that CM Punk came back. But he hasn't been happy. And to me, I think Seth is starting to become a big baby. I'm going to be blunt because I could go on a tirade with cussing, and I'm not going to do that. But he's becoming a big baby, and he's turning heel. You can see that, and you can see that as light of day. He's starting to become a heel, and I don't know who the biggest whiner is, him or Kevin Owens. I don't know who the biggest baby is.
Well, wait, you're missing one. What about Drew?
Oh, well, I forgot about Drew McIntyre. There's another big baby that seems to have come back, and I guess he
has problems with the new bloodline.
Yeah, so he has a match with Sami Zayn. You're going to do me a favor, dude, because you got my phone number. Like I said, I'm going to be in a 5K. Do me a favor, if you don't mind. Text me, who wins the matches. And I'll go back and watch the highlights on Sunday or Monday before we come back here on Tuesday. So I'm refreshed and brought up to everything. But, yeah, those are the three biggest whiners right now.
Well, and I think we talked about it last week on the podcast that there's a rumor out there that they may form a new Shield to try to take out the OG bloodline.
Okay.
But how is that going to work? You've got Seth on Raw, you've got Drew on Raw, and you've got Owen KO on SmackDown.
The only thing is they would switch KO and somebody would come from the Raw.
Well, and we can get into that a little bit later. The whole thing with everybody, the whole transfer window, we could talk about that a little later on. But the other thing I'm starting to notice is, and we talked about it immensely last week. Finn Balor. Get him out of the world title picture. He does not deserve a title match at all. If anybody deserves a rematch, it's Priest. Because he got screwed.
It's a triple threat, but on Saturday for the title.
I'm sniffing some funny business.
Yeah, it's
Gunther's going to retain.
Gunther.
I feel like somebody's going to cost Priest. Not Priest, Balor.
Probably, I'm going to go out on a limb and either either McDonough, or it's going to be JD, or it's going to be
Dominic Mysterio.
One of them is going to cost him the belt.
Because you can tell every time he gets in Dominic's face, Dominic just wants to slap the freaking taste out of his mouth. And the only reason he doesn't is because Liv Morgan's standing there. I think if Liv Morgan's not standing there.
Well, and he had his opportunity, but on Raw, it was just the four of them. It was Dom, Finn.
And again, I need to ask, what the heck is Carlito doing in the Judgment Day?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. He was with LWO with Ray, and then he broke out
Turned heel.
against
No,
them.
he turned heel against him.
Okay. So then that's when he went to.
Because of the whole thing, because I think WrestleMania last year, it was supposed to be Ray and Santos Escobar versus Dominic and Damian, I think, in a tag team match.
Okay.
And they had a whole storyline around who attacked Ray, because Ray Mysterio had a one-on-one match with somebody, and it was Logan Paul. And you know how Logan Paul likes to use underhanded tactics and not win, preferably in the right way. So he had brass knuckles, and I guess Santos Escobar took the brass knuckles, tried to take him out, and then the whole thing was he got accused of hitting Ray and took out Dragon Lee, who was supposed to be Ray's partner at WrestleMania. But then it comes out that it wasn't Santos Escobar. It was Carlito. And ever since that day, he has been trying his hardest to get in the Judgment Day.
And he did that.
he's in, but something seems fishy about it. Something seems off.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. He hasn't wrestled in a match with them, has he? He's just been kind of like a sideshow type thing. He hasn't wrestled with Finn or JD or Dom or anybody. He's just been he comes out when they all come out together, or he helps Finn and JD and Dominic. He doesn't really. He's not in the ring anymore, so.
But no, and then the other thing with Raw this week is, man, the New Day, they couldn't even talk.
Yeah. So who is the third member now? Who are they recruiting?
I've heard Omos, which
really,
Lord knows where he is right now. He hasn't been on TV in months because MVP's over in the other company. Not gonna name it.
AEW.
Yeah, much not name it, because there's a bunch of guys over there that are unhappy that want to come back to WWE. But of course, the owner of that company is being a punk.
Of course.
And not letting them go, like Malachi Black, Buddy Matthews. But anyway, back to Raw. Yeah, the New Day. I've heard Omos. It was supposed to be Odyssey Jones before he got in trouble. That was who was going to replace Big E.
I just have a funny feeling in the back of my mind that Big E is going to get cleared somewhere in the near future. And I don't know what he's going to do to Kofi and Xavier. Xavier. I don't know. I don't know if he'll go at revenge wise on them, or if he'll teach them a lesson in a different way. But I have a funny feeling that when he gets the opportunity, I think it's going to be one of those times where, and it could be the Royal Rumble. I think we talked about that last week, about him possibly coming back there, or it'll be a match that Xavier and Kofi are in together in a tag match or something, and Big E interferes and causes them to lose the match. Something is going to happen, and he's either going to wake them up and they're going to stay apart, or he's going to wake them up and he's going to bring everything back together, and we'll have.
Or there's always a plan C, which is him, and this is, as we like to say, way far out in left field right now. But I could also see where he kind of makes his own version of the New Day with guys from like NXT that nobody really knows about, like the lower mid card guys on NXT. Maybe
Okay.
and we get that's another thing. We can get into NXT a little bit later on, but and I did notice on Raw that Cody Rhodes came out of Adam Pearce's office because of there's this whole transfer window now where the certain people can get traded from Raw to SmackDown, and NXT is also included. I am wondering if they're going to move Cody over to Raw and move Gunther over to SmackDown.
It's a possibility because isn't Jay Uso on Raw as well?
Yep.
It would make more sense. And now Roman and company, they're on SmackDown, right? Roman and
Yes, but Netflix wants them really bad, and they have supposedly what I've heard, quote unquote, they have big plans for the OG bloodline.
well, being that when is the first? What is it? The first Monday in January?
January 6th is the first Raw on Netflix.
It's the week after New Year's. Okay, so it's the okay. So I'm assuming you're gonna have a lot of things happen on that show, not just them. Probably gonna have a lot of Hall of Famers back. They're gonna like blow that.
Well,
show.
and it goes back to 3 hours.
Oh yeah. Then they're gonna have people. They're gonna have OG wrestlers, Hall of Famers. They're gonna have everybody that was available. I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock shows up. I know that he's got his movie thing going on, or John Cena. Somebody big is gonna show up. Somebody will show up.
I wouldn't be surprised if by that time maybe The Rock shows up.
Okay.
To confront Roman.
Could be.
And then again, Drew's another one I used to like. Not anymore. He can't get over the fact that he got screwed and Clash in the Castle 2 years ago now, because that's when Solo debuted, and that's when I could have cared less for Roman at that point, and to a certain extent right now, I still don't care for Roman. I did like seeing them beat the New Bloodline, because if there's any faction I can't stand more than Judgment Day right now, it is the New Bloodline. And that brings us into our next segment. We're going to talk about SmackDown now. And then we'll circle back to Raw in a little bit when we talk more about the transfer window. But SmackDown, I don't know if you caught the highlights last week. I guess the New Bloodline is putting themselves in the U.S. title picture.
I saw that. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we know that
LA Knight.
LA Knight's in there. Well, there's the
Andrade.
thing. Andrade. And again, the champ. You can't count out Shinsuke either. I mean, he's the champ.
No, and I saw that SmackDown I watched on Saturday after I got home from work, and I noticed something in that segment. The whole bloodline segment with Shinsuke. They didn't go after him once. They went after Andrade and LA Knight.
Do you think that there's a possibility that Shinsuke is going to I'm not going to say join them, but
work in cahoots.
Yeah, work in cahoots with them. I actually printed out all of the results from each of the shows. Yeah, I'm just wondering, either that or they weaken the pool of who's going to go after Shinsuke. So, for example, if you take out LA Knight, you take out Andrade, so now you take those two out of the picture so that they...
But yet, do they realize who's looming still? Logan Paul is still out there.
And you know what? Logan Paul would be just the right antagonist for the Bloodline. He would be like Deadpool. Like he'd just be the guy. Oh, you get rid of me? No, I'll be back. I'm coming back. He'll screw them out of something because he's that type of character.
Well, and he's technically still owed a rematch for the U.S. title.
Oh, that's right. LA Knight, right? Correct. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. So yeah. So yeah.
And we know his history with the Bloodline.
Yeah.
Just look at the OG Bloodline and the mini feud he had with Roman. Even though Roman didn't talk at all, it was Sammy, but still. And people got to remember, Logan Paul is waiting for his time to pounce. I'm going to say this. I don't think we're that far away from him coming back and telling Shinsuke, I want my rematch. But then the issue is you got LA Knight, you got Andrade, you got Jacob Fatu, Solo. And I think one of the Tongans is going to be out indefinitely because they got hurt in that entire segment.
Okay. Well, if that's
I think it's Tonga Loa.
Oh, wow. So then Tonga, the crazy one, is the one that's still left. Okay.
Yeah, but at least, see, the good thing is they don't have the tag team titles, which that's a whole nother thing we could talk about with DIY.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you talked about that, Bud, last week that they thought that they were gonna take the belts off of them, and they did.
Off of MCMG.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was gonna be. Did I say DIY?
You mentioned them last week. Week.
Okay. Yeah. So I was partially right then, other than saying I did not see the heel turn coming at all. That completely caught me off guard. Because I knew Triple H had something up his sleeve with them. I thought he was going to break them up and revisit the feud they had in NXT. When it was the black and gold NXT, which was, to anybody that has not watched that feud, Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa, highly recommend it. It shows you that Triple H does know how to book. But
it's been a lot better since Vince left.
Yeah. And again, with SmackDown overall, I thought was pretty good show.
Also, Tiffany Stratton won in her quarterfinal match against Naomi and Elektra Lopez. So she moved on in the tournament.
I think Tiffany Stratton's going to be the one that wins the Women's United States title.
Championship? Okay.
But now to the question everybody wants to know. Who, and we talked about it last week, who attacked Jade Cargill? Because I've seen all these theories out there saying it's Naomi. Some people saying it's Bianca. How could Bianca be the one that attacked her when she was in a match when it happened?
I have one that's way out in left field. Charlotte Flair. Just saying. We haven't seen her in a long time.
You know what?
Just saying.
I've got one that's way out in left field too. They're not even on. I've got two. One is supposedly close to returning. The other one's on it. No. And she's been rumored to be in the Wyatt Six for a long time, but we probably all know by now that that theory is gone. And then the other one's on NXT. My first one that's out in left field, because they've been starting to do plans for her, Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, so she got to be back sooner or later. Yeah.
Haven't seen her. And then the other one, NXT, not the NXT champ. I think it is Jada Parker.
Okay.
And that's way far out in left field. And then I'm going to throw this one at the wall and see if it sticks. I don't think it's Naomi.
I don't think it's Naomi or Bianca. I don't know why if they were in the cage together, why would you take out?
You know what? Has anybody thought of Asuka maybe?
There's another one that's far out there in left field that we haven't seen because she's injured. Who knows? That could be true too. That could be also true.
This one's way, way out in left field. Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, that's out there because Ronda's been not so fond of coming back, and she's made some big off the wall negative comments.
Yeah, but it's Triple H.
Yeah, and you know what else it is?
Money.
Yeah.
We said CM Punk was never coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look what happened. He's back.
Yep.
But okay, so let's talk about the transfer window now, where people can be treated. This is kind of like the superstar shakeup, but it's where guys can be treated. Superstars can be treated from Raw to SmackDown or Raw to NXT, SmackDown to NXT. Give me some names you think might get moved from each brand.
Well, I was just reading, Bud, that on SmackDown there was a altercation between. Oh no, that's okay. Never mind, because they're on SmackDown together. Never mind. I was gonna say Chad Gable, but they're on SmackDown together, so that's not gonna. I don't see. Well, you were talking earlier about Cody Rhodes. If they move Cody over, then who on Raw would be going after his title? Would that be Seth? Would it be I mean,
maybe
I don't know.
Seth?
CM Punk?
Maybe Drew?
Maybe Drew McIntyre?
To get his comeuppance for Cody teaming with Roman.
Yeah, because him, Kevin, and Seth are all, PO'd about
they're
Cody.
all crybabies.
And then the funny thing is, I like that whole altercation between Cody and Kevin a couple weeks ago where he goes, Kevin, maybe the problem is not me. Maybe it's the man staring back at you in the mirror. Maybe you're the problem. Maybe you're the reason you don't.
Did you catch his interview with Michael Cole?
I did in the car. I saw that, buddy, earlier. I think I saw that on Monday or Sunday, or maybe it was Monday because I get to watch a lot of YouTube at work. So I get to catch up on all this stuff on YouTube. But yeah, he pulls him in the car, and Michael Cole's like, I'm not getting in there with you. Just get in the car. Just get in the car. It's warm in here. Get in the car. Yeah. Yeah, I saw the interview.
KO, Kevin Owens is another one that I'm not going to say liked, but I used to support. I used to be a big Kevin Owens supporter. Now that he's gone down this road of being a little on the crazy side, my stance has changed on him. And I'm going to say this, over on Raw, if they move Gunther over, I wouldn't mind that at all. Because like we talked about last week, it gives him new feuds.
Well, yeah, but I think you talked about how he's already kind of wore out the feuds on SmackDown. So it would make sense
on Raw
to switch to Raw. And then that way you'd have.
The only thing with Raw I could see him revisiting as a feud with Seth. Because he really never got another. Him and Seth really only had one match. And it was when Gunther took the title off of him.
That would make sense.
But, and I'm going to say this. I hated Gunther for the longest. Now, I've changed my stance. My stance has changed on Gunther. I'm starting to come around. I don't mind being a heel. I really don't. He he put Finn in his place on Monday. And we can talk about, do you think they're going to move the Judgment Day to SmackDown?
I don't know. I mean,
because I saw Dominic Mysterio on Friday talking to Nick Aldis.
Yeah, because unless they're going to break him up, unless there's going to be some kind of
Which,
break.
I'm sorry, I think it's about time for that. They all need to go their separate ways.
But then if you move Dominic, then you gotta move Liv too. You know,
not if they're gonna turn Dom face.
Very true. And that could be coming too, because like you said you have a funny feeling that he's going to turn.
He's already double turned heel twice. I think it's time for a face turn. And what better place to do it than the triple threat match between Finn, Priest, and Gunther.
Mm-hmm.
Have Dom come out and cost Finn the match, and they have a little blow-off match on Raw, and then you move Dominic over to SmackDown. And then people are out here saying, and I mean, I don't know how credible these rumors are, but they're saying Dom could be a world champion in 2025.
That would be interesting in a way.
That would. And you know what? Dominic's another one. I used to despise him. I've come around with him also. I wouldn't mind if they kept him heel at all.
With me, the wrestler that's grown on me is LA Knight. I never really was a big fan of his when he was a heel, and then when he turned, he's one of those guys that's grew on me. Never, and again, as I said last week, I've never was a fan of Triple H as a wrestler, but I love him as his position now. He fits
as
that role
people like to say, let Papa H cook.
Yeah, he fits that role so very well. So
I'm
glad they put him in that position.
Now let's talk a little bit about NXT. And I know they just had a pay-per-view on Saturday, and I guess we found out who attacked Eddie Thorpe. It was Oba Femi. Which, you know what? I kind of figured that there was people out there throwing out that it was The Rock putting out a hit, because I guess for those of you that don't know, Ava is the daughter of The Rock.
Yes.
And she is the GM of NXT. So people are like, oh, maybe The Rock called in a hit and had Hikuleo or Lance Hawaii attack Eddie Thorpe. But no, it was Oba Femi. And Oba Femi's kind of grown on me, because I watch NXT as much as I can. As a matter of fact, I might try to watch it tonight before the Lightning come on, because the Lightning don't come on till 9, and I might have it on in the background when we do our podcast at 8. But Oba Femi's growing on me. There's a lot of people in NXT that have grown on me. I'm not ready to see Trick lose the title, but I'm afraid he's probably going to lose the title at New Year's Evil, because they've been talking about that he might be one of the guys from NXT that gets called up to the main roster.
I've been trying to watch NXT highlights. I'm bad about that. I usually just stick to the main roster shows, but I'm going to start watching highlights for the show, obviously, but just to get of the future of what is coming up in the works. Because again, at the end of the day, just like with anything else, age never, Father Time is undefeated. So sooner or later, these guys are going to leave. If you're going to have to replace them with young.
Look at The Undertaker.
Yeah.
Perfect example.
So, and I think with him, had Bray Wyatt not passed away, that was the next dark wrestler. I'm not saying dark as in, just freaky. That was the next guy that was supposed to take that role.
Yeah.
Was Bray Wyatt. And Bray wasn't as tall as the Undertaker, but he was size. That size was perfect.
He was a little cuckoo.
Look at the
Wyatt Six.
The playhouse he had with his characters that he had.
Firefly Funhouse.
Yeah, look at that. And then he would change and so yeah.
That gave me nightmares. R.I.P. Wyndham Rotunda.
Yes.
Rest in peace.
Yes.
You are sorely missed.
But then his
brother?
His brother. Okay.
Bo comes along and does the Wyatt Six and
Uncle Howdy. Is that I'm getting that right?
He is, I'm gonna say, he's a mini Bray Wyatt.
He's fit that very well. He's taken the torch from his brother very well. And yeah, he's carrying it on. He does Sister Abigail, and that was Bray Wyatt's finishing move. Yep. He does it very well. I don't think he does it as good as Bray did, but it's pretty damn close. It's pretty damn close.
Yeah. And then you've got back to NXT. One of the guys I've started to like a lot is Javon Evans.
Let me see if I have something about Javon Evans. Oh, was he part? He was part of the
Iron Survivor
Challenge. Okay.
And he's kind of new. He's just recently got on NXT.
Okay.
Because before you get on NXT, they have an NXT level up where they show off the people that they think are going to one day be on NXT. And he was one of the people that was on NXT. Obafemi used to be a basketball player.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Just like Omos. And funny enough, Omos played basketball at the University of South Florida.
Did not know that.
I didn't either. But no, anyway, with NXT, I think the next heel turn that's going to happen, and this is Shawn Michaels we're talking about on NXT. We know he's very well known for heel turns.
Yeah, he turned on his tag team partner back in the day, yeah.
Twice. First one was Marty Jannetty. Yep. Second one was Papa H. Yep. But I think he's cooking up a heel turn with Axiom and Nathan Frazier, which I don't know how many people know this fact. Who trained Nathan Frazier? He's on the main roster on Raw, and he's in a feud right now with Sami Zayn. Not Drew.
Feud with Owens?
Raw.
Raw, okay, that's SmackDown. He's on Raw.
And he wanted to be in War Games, but he refused twice.
Seth Rollins.
Yep. And I didn't know this until they mentioned it on an episode of NXT, and they brought up one of Seth's old promos he did from when he was a heel. And you can tell when Nathan Frazier talks that he sounds exactly like Seth Rollins. And for those people that don't know, next time Nathan Frazier does a promo, listen closely to his verbiage and how he words stuff. And then when Seth does a promo next time on Raw, listen to how he does it. And listen to how he... What's the word I'm looking for? How he communicate, how he makes the same points about what he's talking about. And you can see in Nathan Frazier, they're grooming him to, I think, be the next Seth Rollins.
That would be, I mean, again, yeah, I mean, Seth was part of the Shield, and then he hit Roman in the back with the chair, and Seth where he's at now. And now, I don't, do they still sing his music? I mean, I know he's starting
Yes.
to, they still do it. Okay. All right. So I was
Well,
just
right
curious.
now, which I'm sorry that I'm so tired of it. I am so tired of them singing his music. I'd much rather hear people singing Cody Rhodes' music.
I was going to say, I think that's the guy that I would rather sing. I mean, both songs are good, but I like Cody's entry music a little bit better.
You know what? And I also like Edge's better.
Yeah, that song is another one that,
It's stuck in my head, and it'll never.
CM Punk's music is good too. So I mean, he's got a good, that's another good one too. And we could have a show but about that too, where we could talk about our favorite, intro music and the ones we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to like I don't know when they're gonna turn Nathan Frazier and Axiom heel, or if it's gonna be one of them turning on the other. Because that's what everybody thought with Gargano and Ciampa, is they were gonna turn on one was gonna turn heel on the other. But I think Nathan Frazier is gonna be the one to turn heel. He's gonna pull a Seth Rollins. But it's not gonna be with a chair. He's going to low blow him or hit him with the tag team titles.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this. I know people despise Rich Holland. I do too. But he's a dang good wrestler. He is a good wrestler. Don't get me wrong. I know. And for those of you that don't know, he's the reason Big E is not wrestling anymore.
And he faced off against Trick Williams, right?
Yes, at
the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and okay. Trick won.
Yes.
But apparently there's a storyline now that I guess Trick has been doing all these matches with a neck injury. And they're making that into a storyline, which I'm sorry. I feel like they have too many storylines like that. Like, look at there was one recently, a couple years back, was with the whole when Seth was in the Authority. When he broke John Cena's nose. They made that into a storyline. But that's when we had Vince.
remember too, Sting came back, and he's the one who hurt Sting. Seth Rollins was the one who hurt Sting's shoulder. Then he left, went to AEW, and then now Sting is retired. That was my wrestler in WCW. He was my favorite. When he got, when Hulk Hogan turned on him and Macho Man, and it went to the NWO, and he was the one when he came back out in the Crow black and white with the white face paint.
Well, he came to WWE with that whole storyline with the Authority.
With Triple H. He had the whole, Yep. He's the one who...
Which that was a feud that was messed up. But back to, like, present day NXT right now, I do think, and I know you just started watching NXT highlights, but I do think I do think Rich Holland deserves another chance on the main roster. I felt like
he'll get it. I'm sure he'll get it.
I felt like he was just a throw-in in the Brawling Brutes. I feel like it was supposed to be just Sheamus and Pete Dunne.
Because you were just talking too, but about Nathan Frazier. So you think he's going to turn on Axiom and cost him the belts? Okay. Okay.
At some point, I don't know when, because I don't know who their next opponents are going to be. Because that tag team division on NXT is just like Raw and SmackDown. It's stacked.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good
It
thing.
is. Now, with that being said, who do we think tag team wise could switch brands? Could we see the tag title switch brands? Could we see Gargano and Ciampa go over to Raw? And whoever the tag team champions are on Raw, could we see them go over to SmackDown?
I could see that switching sides. And if Frazier doesn't take a heel turn against Axiom, why not bring those boys up and put them in the. Would you think about maybe possibly bringing them up to the main roster and sticking them against the Judgment Day or somebody like that?
Well, if the Judgment Day still together at that point,
Right.
we don't know, they could split by that point.
The current, with your current tag team champions, if they don't split, you could have those two come up to the main roster and say, okay, well, we're going to come up to the
pull
main
an
roster
MCMG and have them win it their first night.
and have both belts, have both NXT and the Raw.
Well, no, at that point, I would have them drop the NXT tag titles to somebody, and I've got the perfect team for that. They're hurt. One of them's hurt right now. They used to be good buddies with AJ Styles. Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. They were down on NXT for a little bit before, I think it was Luke Gallows got hurt with an arm injury. Maybe you have them come back and take the titles from Axiom and Frazier, and then you send Axiom and Frazier to the main roster. Maybe before you give them tag gold, you put them in a faction with Seth.
Yeah.
Because you know what? And I didn't say this earlier. I trust Seth more as a locker room leader than I do Finn Balor. Even though Seth's turned into a crybaby.
Yeah.
I trust Seth a lot more. Because I've watched Seth for a long time. He's gone through his heel stage. He's gone through his phase. I think the worst gimmick for him was the whole Messiah gimmick during the pandemic. That was, especially the match he had with Ray, the eye for an eye match. Oh, that was just, and I'm sorry to people that had to watch that match. That match was painful. But then again, as we say, that was during the Vince, I don't give a you know what era.
Mm-hmm.
I just put on rematch after rematch after rematch after rematch after rematch because it seemed that's what every Raw was. And then the pay-per-view names were horrible during his regime. To me, the most laughable one was Great Balls of Fire.
I remember the pay-per-views. Well, I mean, no offense, but that was a great song in Top Gun, both Top Gun movies. If you've seen them, guys out there haven't seen them, go back and watch the original. Maverick was just as good just a year ago. So take a time to watch it. So,
but there's no need to name a pay-per-view.
No, I mean, but again, both in WCW had some stupid pay-per-view names too. So, it happens. So,
and I don't know if you saw who's going to be commentating for Saturday night's main event. Jesse.
Oh, the Body Ventura, right? Or is it?
Yep, Jesse Ventura.
Oh, okay. The former.
And I read the other day, no script. He can say whatever the heck he wants. And they're not going to filter it. This should be interesting. This is the first time I've heard him on commentary. He was a commentator before I started watching WWE.
I was gonna say I think he's had some past experience being
He had.
yeah.
They said he used to be on the original Saturday Night's Main Event when
Okay.
you had Hogan, Sting. Oh yeah,
Macho Man. I have his autograph. I got to see him in person, so got Macho's autograph. Yep.
Yeah, we can briefly touch on some memories we have of wrestling from either present day or back when we were both younger. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, like I said, guys, I grew up a WCW fan, and Sting was my guy. When he came out at Halloween Havoc, I think when it was Hollywood Hogan and the NWO. And speaking of NXT, it was cool to see Eric Bischoff back. I didn't think in my right mind you'd ever see him back.
No, I didn't either.
I've got to hear him on podcasts. I think he has a podcast that he does once a week. But he's a reclusive guy. I mean, for the personality that Eric Bischoff comes off as, you wouldn't think he would be you think he'd be very outgoing. He's a very reclusive person. He doesn't like to go out and be out with people. That's not the mentality that I got. But anyway, to get back to my story about Sting, when he came out of Hollywood at Halloween Havoc with the black coming out to the crow theme, that I still think is one of the coolest songs coming out with the crow. And if you guys don't know the movie, the original movie was Brandon Lee, who was Bruce Lee's son, who was killed during the filming. He was shot in the chest with a gun, which I thought it was a dummy, and it was not a dummy round. It was actually a live round. But anyway, he came out and he looked, because Sting was always that tiny kid, blonde hair, mullet style, flat top haircut. And he comes out with long black hair, muscles, unlike, he was very colorful. And now he comes out wearing black and white. And it was like, oh, okay. And then, of course, he beats Hogan, but it's a controversy about, was his shoulders down? Did he kick out in two? But and then, of course, I was an Edge fan. I was a big Edge and Christian fan. And then when Edge went away in retirement, then he came back. It was cool to see that. And now I know he's in AEW and he's Adam Copeland now. He can't use Edge anymore.
Well, we're just going to refer to it as the other brand.
The other brand. But yeah, he's over there now. But those are my, my two, obviously the match that I think we all wanted to see, and we're not going to see it now because both of them are now retired. I always wanted to see Sting and Undertaker. That was one of my dream matches, to see those two against each other. But now that's not going to happen. They're both way past their prime. I don't think it would be, it's not worth putting those two in the ring. I don't think they would even agree to be in the ring together. Why, I don't know, because they're both, like I said, they're both off and retired. So, but those are my past memories from growing up watching wrestling and stuff.
I've got a few, and growing up, I've been to one WrestleMania, and it was when WrestleMania was in Orlando at Camping World Stadium. Best memory I ever had is getting to see the Hardy Boys return. I tell you, when their music hit, I was in like the front row. So I'm like, because the New Day came out, and I'm like, okay, so the New Day's going to insert themselves into this tag team title match. And then they're like, and I had been reading online rumors of, oh, the Hardy Boys are coming back. Oh, there's Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson are going to debut. I mean, no, they were already there.
Yeah.
But there was going to be other team from NXT come up. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to put these rumors aside, and we'll see what happens the day of WrestleMania. And sure enough, that tag team title match comes around. And like I said, the New Day came out. And I'm like, okay, there one or two things is gonna happen. Either because they were the host of WrestleMania. So I'm like, either they're gonna put themselves in the match, or we get a return from some tag team. Maybe Edge and Christian. Because at the time, Edge was still under WWE contract to save a Christian. And they would make appearances every so often. It ended up being the Hardy Boys. And that stadium was shaking. And when I tell you I had chills and goosebumps, I had both. And I'm like, because like I said, we were front, me and my buddy that went were front row. And we were front row right next to where the wrestlers walked down the ramp. And I will never forget that. Keeping on the topic of WrestleMania, my favorite thing was booing Chris Jericho. Because this was Jericho before he left to go help build the other brand. And now, and I might have to go on cut a little promo at the end of this, talking about the other brand. But I loved booing, because at the time, I was a huge Kevin Owens fan. And, they had that whole story of the whole friendship thing.
Right.
Which the point of that I liked. That's one of the few Vince programs / feuds that I actually liked. Was the whole Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho. And I remember Kevin Owens. No, I remember Jericho. Because like I said, I was on where they walked down the ramp. Mm-hmm. I remember Jericho turning to me, telling me, "You better shut up. I'm going to prove you wrong and beat Kevin Owens." And what happened? He lost.
Did you say something coming back up the ramp to him? I would have said,
no, I tried, and he didn't give me the time of day. I wanted to say that's what you get for talking smack before the match.
Exactly.
And I tell you, the other one that gave me chills was Undertaker.
To see him live, that's got to be cool. That's got to be a cool thing.
It was, especially, like I said, I was front row right next to the ramp.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, chills for days when that gong hits. It's game over.
Yeah. Yep.
But that was during the Vince era, and I think Vince had it out for the Undertaker. Because that was supposed to be the Undertaker's retirement match. Was him versus Roman.
Yeah, because Vince is the reason why Undertaker was in back then it was called the WWF, but WWE. Vince is the one who called Mark Calloway and said, "Hey, you're the Undertaker," and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I could do that." So, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember the Raw after Mania when Roman came out and said, "Oh," and I didn't get to go to the Raw after Mania because I had to go back to school that Monday. But I remember watching it on TV, and Roman could not even talk. They were booming the living daylights out of him because he just beat the Undertaker.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, that's the Undertaker's retirement match," and he lost. But no, that wasn't the Undertaker's retirement match. Because I think he ended up having a match against Cena at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And then another one was, they used to have these holiday tours that would come through Florida that were in Tampa. And one year, my mom got me and my buddy tickets, VIP tickets, which meant we got there early and we got to meet a couple of the wrestlers. This is when Jinder Mahal was still in WWE. We got to meet Jinder Mahal. We got to meet Naomi. And I know people at the time, they couldn't stand Jinder because one, he was champion and they felt like, oh, that was the worst WWE championship reign ever, was when Jinder beat Randy Orton. But, and I don't know where Jinder is now. I know he's not over in AEW.
He's on the independent tour. I just saw an interview on he was on with
Chris Van Vliet.
but he was on with Maven, that guy that won Tough Enough. Maven has a YouTube channel, and he was just on there talking about the match he had with Randy Orton, the prisoner, the whatever prison.
Punjabi prison match.
Yes, he was talking about that, and he said during the match that Jinder was climbing too fast, and if you slow it down, you can hear Randy go, "Hey, slow it down, slow down, you're going too fast." So you could see Jinder kind of stop climbing, and Randy will, so it's one of those behind the scenes type thing. But Maven was interviewing Stevie Rich. I watched it today. Stevie Richards. They were going over like just absolute botched spots where wrestlers got hurt. Where can't remember the guy's name. They were a tag team, but he got knocked out. God, I can't think of the rest. It's anyway. Stevie Richards, and they have their own YouTube channels. If you're wrestling fans, suggest you go over there and take a look, because Maven goes back through all of his money and all the perks that they used to get as wrestlers when he won Tough Enough. How Triple H really didn't like him. If that makes a lot of sense.
Shocker. Not a lot of people liked Triple H when he was a wrestler.
Because they said that Triple H came on one of those episodes, and I guess he said something about, he goes, "Oh, so you're a wrestler now, so you think you're going to get that," and I'm not going to go into context because, again, we're not allowed to language on here, so I'm not going to go into context with what he meant. I think you can kind of gather what I'm saying, what I'm getting at. And he goes, "So you think you're a bigwig now, huh?" He goes, "You ain't nothing." He goes, you won this contest. Congratulations. You're not a wrestler yet. Let me, do this for 5 or 6 years and come back and tell me if you think you're a wrestler now. So yeah, he didn't like Maven in the beginning.
No.
When he won Tough.
Yeah, but people that say they don't like Jinder, he's actually a really cool guy. Me and my buddy got to talk to him for like maybe 5 minutes because they let us take photos with the wrestlers that we met, and me and my buddy talked to him. Really cool guy. And I even asked him, because you remember that time he had 2 little lackeys, the Singh brothers. And I'm like, I'm so used to seeing you with the Singh brothers. Where are they at? He's like, "Oh, they're back in the locker room. They didn't make the trip back here to be part of this." And then I got to meet Naomi.
That's cool.
And for the people that don't like Naomi because of this whole storyline with Bianca, and they think she's the one that attacked Jade, Naomi, she's a Florida girl. She's from Orlando.
I was gonna say she's a native. Yep.
And one of the most cool WWE wrestlers. If you ever get the chance to meet Naomi, don't pass it up. And then my personal favorite was meeting Samoa Joe.
Oh, okay. That's got to be a cool experience too.
It was. When I say you see my muscles, now imagine that, but 3 or 4 times bigger. He was cool too.
And he's not the smallest guy either. He's a pretty big.
No, he's a pretty big hombre.
Yep.
he's no slouch. And we could briefly talk about this with people that Vince completely dropped the ball on.
He's one of them.
But yeah, let's get into that. So I've got 3 guys that Vince really dropped the ball on. One being Samoa Joe. That man on the mic was gold. I love when he that promo he had with Brock, how he told Brock, you didn't beat me, you escaped me.
Mm-hmm.
And how he said it with such conviction. And Brock's like, you're never getting a title match again. And it wasn't Brock that said that. It was Paul Heyman.
Yeah.
And Samoa Joe's like, you see that? That's your advocate. And I just love he cooked Brock. My favorite one was when he cooked Roman. Because at the time everybody was tired of Roman. Because they were just trying to Vince was trying to shove him down our throat as the next big baby face.
Yep.
And nobody wanted that. They wanted him to be a heel.
Mm-hmm.
And the original plan, I think, was for him to be the one to put the chair in the back of Seth and Dean.
And it was the other way around. Yeah. It was the other way around.
That's because I heard that in an interview with Triple H. He's like, the original plan was for us to have Roman be the one to turn heel and not Seth.
Mm-hmm.
But then I guess Roman refused and said, no, I'm not doing that to Dean and Seth. So then they had to go to Seth. But and then the last thing I'm gonna say about Samoa Joe is he eviscerated. There was a couple guys he eviscerated on the mic. One of them being Jeff Hardy.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jeff Hardy had real bad issues with adult beverages.
Yes. Yes.
Real horrible. And he's like, and I can vividly remember what he said. Jeff Hardy tries to open his mouth and say, I've already beaten you. And Samoa Joe's like, why don't you hush your mouth and act like this is an AA meeting? And then he tried to cook Randy too.
Yeah.
You don't do that. That's where he kind of messed up. You don't try to cook Randy Orton on the mic. We know what Randy's capable of.
Yes.
But my favorite feud with Samoa Joe when he was in WWE was the whole feud he had with AJ Styles.
What is it? What is the status on AJ? Is he coming back or?
I've heard that he might come back at the Rumble.
Okay.
Because they tried the fake retirement angle with him, like they did with Mark Henry back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Henry actually liked it. But he's like, my favorite promo from that, because everybody knows that about AJ Styles' wife, which is Wendy. And Samoa Joe's like, oh, Wendy. I'm like, oh, he did not just get the family involved. That's taking it too far when you get family involved.
Yes.
And then he showed up at their house. There's only been one other feud like that in the history of WWE. I think it was Triple H and Randy Orton back in the day.
Yeah.
And Randy's another one you don't mess with on the mic.
No.
Randy will he will put you in your place.
I remember when Rhea came back and he's like, oh, mommy, daddy's back too. Randy's like, daddy's back too. And
Yep.
I'm like, that is pure, like,
that's Randy Orton.
you don't
That's
mess with
Randy
him.
Orton being Randy Orton.
Yep.
Or you got Jey Uso asking Damian Priest if Rhea if Rhea's single.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that whole thing where she would go around and say, yeet, everywhere she'd go. Who's your partner? Yeet. And you know who she was talking about. She was talking about Jay.
Mm-hmm. Which that's never been visited, but I don't think well, I shouldn't say hasn't. It was briefly visited for a little bit, but I don't think Rhea's husband would be okay with that because he's over in AEW. I mean, I know Dominic's wife was fine with him doing the whole thing with Rhea because she knew that he was a complete. Yeah, it's part of a storyline. Speaking of the other brand, Tony Khan, get your head out of your behind. Let these guys go that don't want to be there. Let Malachi Black come back to WWE. Let Buddy Matthews come back to WWE. Let Ricky Starks come to WWE. Let Penta come to WWE. No, let Ray Phoenix come to WWE. Stop trying to add time to these guys' contracts that don't want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't want to be there, there's a reason. It's how you treat them. And there is somebody I follow from the other company on TikTok. He's the manager for Isaiah Swerve Scott, which is now Swerve Strickland in AEW. And I was watching his live on TikTok this morning. He's like, "Oh, AEW is a great locker room." I'm sorry, Prince Nana. I do watch AEW, but everything I've heard on Twitter, Instagram, on all forms of social media, AEW, there's a lot of fights in the locker room. I'm looking at you, Jack Perry. You're the reason CM Punk's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at you, Christian Cage, with your whole angle you're doing right now with the patriarchy. Who else? Oh, Saraya. Why are you in AEW? You being wasted. Mm-hmm. You're not even being used right now. Now, I do have to give him credit. There is some misfits that got let go from WWE that he is doing a good job with. Tony Storm, which she was barely getting used in WWE. Because, again, I'll give you one guess as to who was in charge when she was on the main roster.
Vince McMahon.
Yep. And Vince did not, it was clear, Vince did not like pushing the women's division.
No.
Oh, wait. There was one more I forgot about. Miro. He wants to come, he has made it publicly clear that he wants to come back to WWE. But again, Tony Khan, like I've said for the past 2 minutes now, does not want to release these guys. He wants to keep them and make them suffer. Tony Khan.
He was good as Rusev. I'm surprised that he, I mean, the whole thing with Lana, obviously him and Lana were married in real life. I don't think they're together anymore.
No, they're not together anymore. But I think they still talk on a cordial basis.
But I mean, I think he was good as Rusev. I hope
he was. The whole Rusev Day thing was amazing.
Yeah.
But no, you know what? I'm gonna say this. The whole House of Black needs to be, that whole faction needs to be, I mean, I think Brody King would do, because he's a big guy, and Triple H does like his bigger wrestlers.
Yeah. Yep.
I think Brody King would fit perfect in the WWE. Just bring the whole House of Black over. I know Brody King likes it in AEW, but I've heard that middle of next year is when Buddy Matthews and Malachi Black's contracts in. But Malachi has been trying to get out of his contract for the longest time with AEW. But again, Tony Khan doesn't want to take his losses and just cut him because he knows he's going to go right back to WWE, which he should. And another guy that WWE dropped the ball with was Adam Cole.
Yeah.
Big time. They had a chance to make him the next big star on the main roster, but they didn't. They missed. They met the whole Undisputed Era. They missed with that entire faction. And look what they're doing over in AEW now. They are doing really good. MJF, you need to get out of AEW and come to WWE because you can't seem to keep WWE's name out of your mouth.
I was going to say, he's consistently talking about the WWE.
He's either talking about The Miz, he's either talking about Tony Khan's brother, Nick, or he's talking about how he would make a lot more money in WWE because of jolly old Saint Nick. Which, I mean, he probably would. And there is a lot of feuds I would want to see him have in WWE. The Miz would be the first one.
Yeah.
For sure. But I think that's going to wrap it up because we have another podcast in less than an hour. So we will see everybody back here at 8 o'clock for the college football podcast.
Yep. See you guys in an hour.
Yep.